The life cycle of wine investment begins with meticulous selection, focusing on vintage, vineyard reputation, and region. These elements are crucial in identifying a wine with potential for appreciation. As the wine ages, its value can enhance, reflecting the importance of the aging process in the investment journey. The holding period is strategic, often spanning years, allowing the wine to mature and potentially increase in market value. This stage requires patience and foresight, as the timing for selling becomes critical. When deciding to sell, market demand, wine condition, and historical prices guide the investor. The aim is to maximize returns by choosing the optimal moment, influenced by global trends and consumer preferences. Wine investment is an art that combines knowledge, patience, and timing. It's a journey from acquisition to sale, where each step is pivotal in shaping the investment success.
Jonny, I'm going to ask you to do the impossible. You wrote a dissertation. Can you summarize that for us? How do the mechanics of fine wine investment impact its potential as an alternative asset class?
Sure, Andy. I guess wine is interesting. It sits within alternative assets in the sense that it's not an equity. It's not bonds. It has its own set of dynamics. It's limited by a fairly opaque market with certainly far less, ironically, liquidity than you would have in many other traditional markets. It doesn't necessarily mean that it sticks out within other alternative assets, like, say, real estate or cars or watches or these sort of things. But there's certainly a lot of elements that mean it shouldn't really directly be compared to, say, the S&P 500 on a graph, which you sometimes see that on people pitching wine as an investment, because there's a lot of hidden costs, which, in my paper, the conclusion was that it can be 3 to 4% annually. And therefore, I think it's important that, yes, you can make money investing in wine, but understand the risks, understand the counterparty risks, understand the credit risks, understand the issues involved with storage, and then go into it with your eyes wide open, because you don't have the same protections as you would do in other assets.
So it sounds like one should proceed cautiously.
Yes, certainly.
Dave, you're an entrepreneur, so you're always looking for opportunities. How do you assess the potential for appreciation for a particular wine or a vintage?
Well, I think, wine is like stock. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, because they will peak, and then, the market can drop out immediately. I mean, I know people that buy cases of wine, they'll drink one bottle, they'll taste it, and it gets better and better and better, but then they'll end up selling, 8 of the bottles when they've peaked to make a return on their investment where their wine was actually costing nothing to drink, type of thing. I've done something a little bit unique with NFT Wine Club, where I've got a chip built into my label, and it registers it on the blockchain. So you actually can make an investment that way if you're into NFTs. So I'm the first guy to actually have on the bottle, there's a chip built in right there. And you just take your phone and you go right over the top of it, and it'll immediately pull up who owns the bottle number, and it registers you to the blockchain. So it's something unique that I've come up with on a wine. So not only do you get the original artwork, but you also have the NFT. So you could possibly still drink all your wines, but still have an investment coming back with your NFT. So it's a win-win sort of on that. If your NFT goes to zero, it doesn't matter. You still had your 2 bottles of wine that you got for $99. So it's still, you didn't lose anything. You still have the enjoyment of the wine.
Dave, since you're such the business guy, like you've created multiple businesses that sell wine, do you think, is wine a good investment, or are you more of a shovel and jeans kind of guy?
Well, I did something really unique, which is called Own a Napa Vineyard, where I've leased you 2 vines in my vineyard. Now that is a moneymaker. If you're looking for financing, I mean, as a vineyard owner, that is something that you can create. Technically, my vineyard's the most expensive vineyard in the world because I'm getting over $40,000 a ton of something I would normally get $5,000 a ton. So that, if you're looking for investment like that, the big joke in the wine industry is if you want to make $1 million in the wine industry, you got to start out with 10. By the end of the year, you only have $1 million left. So it's a long term. I mean, most wineries don't own their vineyards because it's 3 years of planting the grapes, and that's negative, cash flow for 3 years because you still got to take care of the vines. And then when you start making the wine, it's another 3 years before you're going to release it. So you'll have 6 years of negative cash flow, coming out. So you've got to put a lot of money in at the beginning. These older wineries and stuff, if the land's been paid for, things like that, of course they can make more money. But it's hard to make money right now, like in Napa Valley at $1 million an acre. You couldn't sell your grapes for enough to pay for the taxes and everything on the land. So it has to be in a family or a corporation that has other write-offs, other things that you might make money with because you couldn't make it on the vineyard anymore. Now there's wines out there, $300, $400 a bottle. Of course they're making money. I mean, but it's it's the volume, a small winery like me that makes, 3,500 cases or 5,000 cases it's hard to make a lot of money off of that. You make it on selling your brand afterwards. That's where the investment for the winery owners. Now, like I said, consumers, they'll buy your wine and it goes up in value. And there are places where you can sell your wines legally because that's the other issue we have is all the laws with wine. You can't ship wine. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy rules. So it makes it a harder investment in the U.S. As far as that. But I mean, there are people, buying wine all day long that, are making money off of it. They buy it in bulk or whatever, and they resell it, buy it by the barrel. They're doing it with whiskey, everything else, and then they'll sell it in the future. So that's sort of what Robert Mondavi did. They called it an NFT, but it's really a future. You buy your wine now for $100 a bottle. They know in 2 to 3 years it's going to sell for, $200 a bottle. So they'll either give you the $200 or they'll give you the bottle of wine. You have a choice. So that's, to me, is just nothing but futures. It's not.
Agriculture is tough. I have a friend who's a farmer. He tells me he loves farming. He grew up farming on the Big Island. Now he's on Maui. He has a small farm. He says, basically you farm until you go broke.
Correct.
But he loves it.
It's meditation for me. I just finished pruning 3,600 vines by myself. Because when I do this Own a Napa Vineyard, I invite the vineyard owners to come out and prune their vines. And it happened to rain those 2 days. Well, you can't prune in the rain because if you there's a disease that will go into the plant. So I told everybody, you can still come for the party. We still drank, ate food, and did everything all day long for 2 days. But nobody was allowed to prune their vineyard. So when the rain stopped, of course, I get to prune all 3,600 vines. So I was out there for the last week and a half pruning like a madman every day that it wasn't raining. And so, I finished that, I like doing it personally. I mean, sure, I could hire somebody to do it, but I personally like to do it because I want it done right also. I mean, you can really mess up a plant. That's why we have to give instruction on how to prune when they come out and prune the vineyard. So
that's hardcore. Casleah, you've been waiting patiently. In your opinion, what are the most underrated regions or vintages investors should pay attention to?
Oh, that's such a good question. Underrated regions. I think Spain for sure. Like Spain has, these longtime family-owned wineries that are organically farmed, killer wines that we're still getting so cheap. It blows my mind every time that I'm like, how is this so cheap and it's organic and small production and family owned? Let's see. I was working with a French winemaker yesterday from Languedoc, and the wines from there I also think are super underrated. Beautiful south of France French wines that are also organically farmed, that are really small production and family owned as well. I think the south of France is underrated. And then South America in general, like Chile and Argentina are both making some outstanding wines, and really age-worthy wines too, that we're still, people like me can still afford the good stuff. So those are a few of them.
Jonny, you want to weigh in? You have any
Yeah,
favorites?
I think that's an interesting point to make, is that there's two things really, and we discussed this earlier, Andy. If you're buying for your own cellar to save yourself money drinking later, or if you're buying to sell for financial gain purely as motivation, because I think all of us in the wine industry have tons of wines that we love that might cost you $30, $40 a bottle, or hopefully even less, that will never go up in price. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You're quite happy that your favorite wine doesn't now cost $100, but that means that it's not necessarily a good investment. So in the world of wine investment, it's actually a lot of things that you wouldn't dream of drinking because it's too darn expensive. So in terms of that, it's dominated by the Bordeaux Chateau. So first gross would be kind of like your Apple and Microsoft of the stock market. Someone like Chateau Lafite or Mouton Rothschild. So Bordeaux is kind of the typical epicenter of the wine market. That has shifted, I guess, in the last 10 or 20 years, and it is diversified as the fine wine market in general has diversified with different regions. However, I would say that if you were looking in the average wine investor's portfolio, you're still going to have a good chunk of that might be 50% Bordeaux, then Burgundy, seen massive price appreciation over the last couple of decades. That'll be a good chunk of the portfolio, maybe 20, 30%. Champagne has been a real outperformer, at least over the last 5-10 years. And these are the main French regions, like the Rhone Valley also has some aspects. And then outside of France, yes, there are a couple of wines in Spain that are high priced enough to make it there. Yes, there's a couple of American wines that come up there. Obviously, like some of your cult Napa wines, like Opus, like Harmon. These are internationally recognized and are kind of collected as investments. So, sorry, quite long-winded, but it really depends on your motivation. But if guys come in and want to spend $1 million on wine as investment, it's these kind of regions that they're going to look at, rather than buying the lower price bottles. The other thing that's important to recognize is that if you spend $70 on a bottle of wine, your annual storage cost with insurance is probably 2%. Whereas clearly if you spend 10 times on that, it's a much smaller percentage of the value. So there are efficiency gains in having higher priced wines.
Makes sense that motivation matters. We're going to talk about pricing volatility. Let's go to segment 2.